like food. I know I love food. But did you know that 60 to 70% of the food items in grocery stores contain at least one ingredient that is GMO? GMO and GE are genetically engineered or modified crops. They are currently very controversial due to their genetic makeup. I have researched this topic extensively. After I became severely ill from an inflammatory bowel disease, I now have to be very careful from the food I consume. It is very extremely difficult to avoid GMOs and GE ingredients without a proper label. I am here to persuade you that GMO and GEs are not as safe as biotechnology companies claim they are, and that the food containing GMOs ingredients should be labeled. As a consumer, you have the right to know what's in your food. In this speech, I will discuss why GMOs should be labeled. Number one, we do not know the long-term risk of GMOs. Second, we need the transparency between biotech companies, the government, and the people. And three, you as a consumer have the right to know. In order to fully understand what a GMO or GE is, we will go into my first point, which is a long-term science assessment. What are GMOs and GEs? Genetically modified organisms and genetically engineered. They were first introduced in 1992 according to the FDA, and in 1996 they became commercially available. The most common crops that are GMOs in the United States are corn, cotton, canola, soy, and sugar beets. GMOs have altered DNA that was taken from other species. In nature, these species would never cross to share DNA. An example is corn. Scientists have actually extracted part of the DNA from cotton and put it into corn. The corn can no longer be eaten by the worms, which acts as an insecticide. So essentially, you're eating some type of hybrid between corn and cotton. The majority of the corn and soy and other GMO crops have been genetically engineered to be resistant to the herbicide called glyphosate, which is known as a toxin. According to the World Health Organization and the Food Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the introduction of these toxins creates new allergens and increases the level of the existing ones in the food. Studies conducted by organizations have suggested that GMOs might cause damage to the immune system, the liver, and the kidneys. The environmental impacts of Roundup, which is also known as glyphosate, are only linked to health issues in the environment. The amount of pesticides in GMO fields is so great that it has contaminated the water, the soil, and the air. The need for insecticides has actually gone down since we use GMOs, but the amount of glyphosate, or also known as pesticides, continues to rise now that the weeds have become resistant to it. Right here, I have a graph that shows when we first introduced GMOs, and in 2011, the amount of pesticides used to actually combat the weeds from the GMOs. So now that we have talked about GMOs and their genetic composition and their impact on the health and the environment, we will go into my second point, which is the transparency between the biotech companies, governmental agencies, and the people. According to the FDA, GMOs are not different than organic produce. They do not regulate them because, according to them, they are the same and they are super safe. The only research that has been conducted to prove that GMOs are safe to consume has been done by biotech companies, or they have been funded by them. There is no transparency in the studies done on GMOs, which kind of tells us, have they been tampered with? The research conducted by the biotech companies does not always match the research done in independent labs. Actually, a lot of the time, the research labs and the bio companies' research, they actually contradict each other. The FDA claims that GMOs and non-GMOs are the same, but yet the U.S. Patent Office claims otherwise. The U.S. Patent Office states that GMOs are different and that biotech companies who own the patents own those crops. If strains of GMOs somehow end up in the strains of organic farmers, they can get sued for copyright infractions. A patent clearly states that they are different, but yet the federal government does not acknowledge this. Huge companies are always lobbying against GMOs. GMO labelings. For example, Monsanto, which is a huge biotech company, has spent over $8 million in lobbying against GMO labeling. More money has been spent on lobbying against GMO labeling than actually on the safety and research development of GMOs. The biggest GMO label oppositions are companies that use GMOs, such as Nestle, General Mills, Monsanto, Coca-Cola North America, Campbell's Soup Company, and Hershey, just to name a few. If biotech companies claim that GMOs are safe to use, and these corporations use GMOs in their product, why are they so scared of labeling? What is it that they're hiding from you? Which brings us to our third and final point, the right to know. The right to know. There are over 64 countries in the world that actually mandate GMO labeling. And one of those countries, believe it or not, is Syria. Syria is in total chaos by now, but at least they have their food stuff together. The U.S. does not require any labeling. Those companies who do label their products do it voluntarily. It's called an independent verification. For example, these products right here are all verified by the Non-GMO Project and are actually USDA organic products. The Non-GMO Project is an independent verification done with the Non-GMO Project and lets consumers know that they are not using any GMO ingredients in their products. The USDA organic verification certifies all USDA organic foods that are non-GMO. To be considered for a USDA organic, the food has to be non-GMO and it has to have less than 1% of GMOs. In many states around the country, they have tried to pass laws and bills that prevent companies from not labeling the GMO products. For example, Vermont passed a GMO mandatory labeling law that will take effect in 2016. New York is actually trying to pass a law right now. New Mexico tried to pass a law in January 13 of 2013 called SBA 18, which was sponsored by Peter Wirth. The bill did not pass the Senate floor. Even though it did not pass the Senate floor, in 2013, you can still lobby for GMO labeling bills. So the only way that we will make sure that we are given the right information about GMOs is by having mandatory labeling. You can contact your state representative, which is Stephen Pierce, or your senators Tom Udall and Martin Henrich, and pressure them to push for GMO labeling bills. You can go out and vote. Bills are sometimes left for the public. If it is put inside a ballot, you can go vote and actually get a bill passed. The new elections are coming up in 2016. We are encouraging transparency between government and corporations and the people. GMO labeling goes beyond passing a bill. It represents the future generations of Americans. If we do not pass any GMO labeling, we will have more people with higher cancer and autism rates. Our world will be more contaminated by insecticides and pesticides. If we do have GMO labeling, it gives the people the right to choose. No more wondering if your food is safe or not. You can decide what to feed yourself and your family. It also pushes biotech companies to produce more studies and research to make sure that their products are actually really safe and they are held responsible for any mishaps. You now have the information for GMOs and GEs. A simple email to your representative or 30 minutes to file a voting ballot can make a big difference. It will promote the transparency between biotech companies, government agencies, and people. But most importantly, it gives you the right to choose and to consume. I have attached a link onto this video that actually you can sign to petition a GMO labeling bill in New Mexico.